Putin is increasingly weakening his own state, and may soon find himself facing a self-created dilemma. This was stated by former U.S. Special Representative for Ukraine Kurt Volker on the LIGAnet project. According to him, the Kremlin dictator has so deeply reoriented the Russian economy towards the needs of the war that now he has nowhere to retreat. He's invested so much money in this, rebuilding the Russian economy to support this war, that he increasingly faces a choice: continue the war and realize his vision, or preserve the Russian state, Volker said. When asked by former Ukrainian Foreign Minister Pavlo Klimkin whether such a choice really exists, Volker answered affirmatively, and revealed the details. And he could weaken it so much that he'll be faced with a choice: destroy the Russian state for the sake of his vision and his own legacy, or pause to stabilize the country. I think that's the choice he'll have to make, he added. According to Volker, Putin still believes the West is weak and fragmented, and therefore merely increasing pressure is sufficient. However, as the American diplomat noted, the facts indicate otherwise. A separate challenge for the Kremlin, according to Volker, will be the end of the war itself, if it comes to that. Russia will have to integrate into society hundreds of thousands of mobilized and recruited prisoners who return from the front. Russia missed the chance for a favorable peace deal, as Vladimir Putin rejected an offer of direct talks with Volodymyr Zelensky amid the Ukrainian armed forces' increasing success in the war. This is what The Telegraph reports, analyzing recent events and statements. The publication, in particular, draws attention to a statement by Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiga, who directly states that Russia missed the chance to end the war on acceptable terms. By rejecting President Zelensky's offer of direct peace talks, Putin missed his chance to exit his failed war. Things will only get worse for Russia. Battlefield losses will continue to mount. Defeats will become increasingly humiliating, Sybiga wrote on social media after Putin rejected the offer of direct talks. According to The Telegraph, Ukraine's European allies generally share the Ukrainian minister's view that the window of opportunity for diplomatic progress may be limited, given Russia's failures on the front lines and its economic problems. Against this backdrop, as the authors of the publication note, it becomes clear that Kyiv is attempting to change its key partner in negotiations with Russia, to involve Europe instead of the United States, which is mired in its own foreign policy problems. Zelensky said he was receiving mixed signals from Putin over whether the Kremlin chief was ready to settle the war after nearly 5 years of fighting. Kyiv and its European allies believe the Russian president has come under renewed domestic pressure to consider a ceasefire because of his armed forces' battlefield struggles and the country's weakened air defenses. "We know he wants to win in this terrible war," Mr. Zelensky said. "He's not so loud about it because he doesn't have the initiative on the battlefield. I think he understands it. But really 100% depends on his decision in his country. And in this war, to be honest, if he wants to stop this war, we will meet." Putin has few good options in Ukraine with his armed forces unable to advance significantly on the battlefield while Western sanctions are chipping away at his resources, Estonia's foreign intelligence chief has said. Kaupo Razin, a top spy on NATO's eastern flank, told Reuters Russia was losing more men than it was recruiting in the 5th year of its full-scale war, and that a general mobilization would be deeply unpopular and potentially undermine stability. All these factors together are creating a situation where some people in Russia, including in the higher levels, understand that they have a big problem. Hard to say what Putin thinks about it, but I think all these factors are starting to float into his decision-making, he said in an interview in Tallinn. Russian forces in recent months have been registering some of their slowest rates of advance in Ukraine since 2023, 1 year after their full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Russia's $3 trillion economy contracted by 0.3% in the first quarter. Putin says government measures to boost the economy are beginning to yield positive results, and he has repeatedly said Russian forces will fight on until they have achieved all their goals. Razin said the main reason the financial situation in Russia was so bad was the sanctions on the financial sector that were really hurting, while punitive measures on Russia's oil exports were also limiting its income. "I think it's very difficult choices for them now. It's hard to predict what they will decide in this current situation. Estonia, which shares a land border with Russia, is a leading supporter of Ukraine in the NATO military alliance and European Union, and it has persistently called on its allies to step up pressure on Moscow. So my message is, let's push forward with sanctions. This is not the time to hesitate, just let's keep going, he said. Another European intelligence chief, who spoke on condition of anonymity, told Reuters in separate remarks that it was clear there were growing signs of pressure on Russia, but no indication for now that was changing Moscow's calculus in the war. It's very difficult for me to see that they would get rid of their objective to get the whole Donbass area, and Russia is in no hurry, basically, the chief said. Russia has insisted during US-brokered peace talks that Ukraine should withdraw from the eastern Donbass region as part of any deal, a proposal that Kyiv has rejected. The Donbass region comprises the Russian-occupied province of Luhansk and the Donetsk region, some of which Ukraine has been able to defend against a years-long Russian offensive. The spy chief added it did not look like Russia was moving to soften its objectives in the war or that there was any kind of big breakthrough in the offing. The spy chief described Russian society as resilient. It is wishful thinking that now Russia's leadership is in some way eroding, or Putin is somehow challenged domestically, the official said. The Estonian spy chief predicted that Russia would not drop its objective of subjugating Ukraine while Putin remained in power, and would also keep a sizable military on Ukraine's borders even after the end of the conflict. In addition, he said, once the fighting is over, Moscow will seek to expand its military along the border with NATO and seek military dominance, from the Arctic until the Black Sea. The military ambition is very, very big on the Russian side, he said, predicting Moscow would continue to carry out sabotage attacks in the west regardless of danger to civilian lives. Russia has consistently denied any involvement in sabotage planning or attacks, and rejects such accusations as Western scaremongering. Russia's losses significantly complicate its ability to launch a large-scale offensive operation this summer. But losses alone won't force Russia to make peace, former CIA Special Operations Director for Europe and Eurasia Ralph Goff told the Espresso TV host. He confirmed that the Russians are suffering heavy losses on the battlefield, and it's becoming increasingly difficult for them to recruit sufficient numbers of new troops. Therefore, it will be difficult for them to form new units for an offensive. However, he said, they will continue intensive fighting, attempting to conduct isolated offensive actions and identify weaknesses in the Ukrainian defense. But I don't expect any fundamental changes or dramatic breakthroughs, he said. At the same time, he says that increasing the losses Ukraine inflicts on Russians will not push the Russian authorities to change. Unfortunately, we are becoming convinced that Putin doesn't care about human losses on his side. Therefore, I don't think there is a specific number of dead or wounded Russian soldiers that will force him to abandon his plans. He added that Putin and the Russian people could be influenced from another direction, by continuing to strike military and economic targets on Russian territory. Ukraine must do several things at once. As the saying goes, walk, talk, and chew gum all at once, he said. First, hold the battlefield, inflicting significant losses on Russian forces. Second, continue medium-range strikes, approximately 40 to 120 kilometers away. Such strikes are sensitive to Russian logistics, tactical headquarters, and troop concentrations, and they reduce the Russians' ability to conduct offensive operations. Third, continue long-range strikes on Russian territory, against economic targets, oil refineries, oil production facilities, missile production facilities, fiber optic plants, and other similar facilities. The analyst added that in response, Russia will intensify its attacks on Ukrainian cities. By targeting infrastructure, it will attempt to create another difficult winter for Ukraine and crush morale, but ultimately fail to achieve this.